Jake Morrison stood in the middle of the huge council chamber and felt the weight of 47 alien gazes upon him. The room was so large that his voice would echo for 3 seconds if he spoke too loudly. Golden lights came down from the curved ceiling and made strange shadows on the walls. Each alien species had their own section with seats made for their different body types. Some sat, some floated, and some just stood because they had no legs at all. The Vorthak delegates looked like living crystals, and they made soft clicking sounds when they moved. Every click meant they agreed with what was happening. The Nathari were like colored gas clouds that moved in slow circles, and their happy swirling meant they liked the decision too. Near the front, the Pixari creatures sang in high voices that sounded like birds, but today even they were quiet. Council Prime Zelthek sat on the highest platform in the center of the room. He was 12 feet tall and looked like a giant insect, with 6 arms and 4 eyes. His shiny black shell reflected the golden lights as he moved. When he spoke, his mouth parts clicked together and made a sound like breaking sticks. He had been the leader of the Galactic Council for 20 years and had never liked humans very much. The human species has been found guilty of being too violent and too wild for our peaceful galaxy, Zelthek said in his deep voice. His words were translated into 47 different languages at the same time. You fight too much. You ask too many questions. You do not follow rules the way other species do. The council has voted, and the decision is final. Jake Morrison was 55 years old and had gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent 15 years of his life trying to make friends with these alien species. He had learned their languages and their customs. He had eaten their strange foods and attended their religious ceremonies. He had worked day and night to prove that humans could be good members of the galactic community. Humans have 72 hours to leave all council space. Zelthax continued. Every human must go. Every human ship must go. Every human building must be empty. If any human remains after 72 hours, they will be arrested and put in prison forever. The other delegates expected Jake to get angry. They thought he would shout and make threats. They thought he would cry or beg or promise that humans would change. Some species had done all of these things when the council rejected them. The Zorlan ambassador had screamed for 6 hours. The Beltac delegate had offered half his planet's wealth. The Yanari representative had actually attacked 3 council guards before being dragged away. But Jake Morrison did none of these things. He picked up his small computer tablet from the desk in front of him. He straightened his simple black suit jacket and checked that his tie was straight. Then he looked up at Zelthex with calm eyes and spoke in a clear, quiet voice. The human government understands the council's position, Jake said. We will do exactly what you have asked. All humans will leave council space within 72 hours. The chamber became so quiet that Jake could hear his own heartbeat. Even the Nathari stopped swirling. The Pixari stopped their singing completely. Several delegates turned to look at each other with confused expressions. This was not what they had expected at all. Jake continued speaking in the same calm voice. We thank the Council for letting us participate in galactic affairs for the past 15 years. We learned many things from you. We hope the galaxy will be peaceful and happy in the future. He turned around and started walking toward the exit door. His footsteps echoed in the silent chamber. Each step sounded loud in the quiet room. No one spoke, no one moved. Everyone just watched the human ambassador walk away. Council Prime Zelthex felt something strange in his chest. It was like a cold feeling that started small and then grew bigger. He had expected the human to fight back. He had prepared for angry words and legal challenges. He had guards ready in case Jake became violent. But this quiet acceptance made him feel uncomfortable in a way he could not explain. As Jake reached the door, he stopped and turned around one more time. The withdrawal will begin immediately, he said. We wish you all well. Then he walked through the door and disappeared. The chamber stayed quiet for a long time after he left. Some delegates whispered to each other in their own languages. Others just sat and stared at the empty space where the human had been standing. Zelthex realized that in all his years as council leader, he had never seen anyone accept rejection so calmly. Usually there were tears or anger or desperate attempts to change the decision, but the human had just said yes and walked away. It felt wrong somehow, though Zelthex could not understand why. The voting had been clear. 38 species voted to expel humans. Only 9 voted to let them stay. The decision was fair and legal. So why did Zelthex feel like something bad was about to happen? Lisa Parker stood on the command deck of Kepler Station and watched her people pack up 15 years of work. Through the large windows, she could see human ships arriving every few hours to take away equipment and people. The station had been home to 300 scientists and workers, and now they all had to leave. Kepler Station was huge, with 12 levels and over 200 rooms. It floated in space between 2 suns and had been the most advanced research facility in this part of the galaxy. Human scientists had discovered new medicines here. They had learned how to grow food in space. They had even figured out how to talk to some alien animals that no one else could understand. Commander Parker called Dr. Paul Martinez as he walked up to her. He was carrying a box full of his research notes. The Trithari delegates are here. They want to meet with you right away. They say they can convince the council to change their minds. Lisa shook her head and kept watching the ships outside. The council has made their decision, Paul. We need to respect that. Paul looked confused. But Commander, we have friends. Here, the Trithari have been our partners for 10 years. Surely we can work something out. No, Lisa said firmly. When someone tells you to leave, you leave. We won't beg or make trouble. We'll go quietly and with dignity. This same scene was happening all across council space. On every world where humans lived or worked, the evacuation was calm and organized. There were no protests in the streets. No one chained themselves to buildings. No one refused to go. Human leaders simply told their people to pack up and prepare to leave. On the colony world of New Geneva, Mayor Susan Clark was helping organize the evacuation of over 1 million human settlers. The humans had been farming this planet for 12 years and had built beautiful cities with parks and schools and hospitals. Now they had to leave it all behind. Ma'am, said her assistant Joey Williams, the planetary governor wants to speak with you. He's offering to let us stay if we renounce our Earth citizenship and become citizens of his world instead. Susan was packing files into boxes in her office. She stopped and looked at Joey with sad eyes. That's very kind of him, but we can't do that. We're humans, we'll always be humans. And humans aren't welcome in council space anymore. At the big trading station called Crossroads, Captain Roy Jenkins was pulling human merchants out of the largest market in 3 star systems. Crossroads was where aliens from dozens of worlds came to buy and sell goods. Human traders had been very successful here because they were good at understanding what different species wanted. Captain, said his business partner, a tall blue alien named Kef, this is crazy. You humans make more profit for this station than any other species. The station manager is willing to hide you from council inspectors. You could stay and keep working. Roy finished loading the last crate of human goods onto his ship. I appreciate the offer, Kef, but we gave our word. When humans give their word, we keep it. We said we'd leave, so we're leaving. The most painful evacuation was happening on Titan Base, where Dr. Chen Liu had been working on revolutionary new technology. She had spent 8 years developing a new type of space travel that could move ships faster than anyone thought possible. Her work was almost finished and would have helped every species in the galaxy. Her research assistant was a young Kelvari alien named Kex, who had worked with her for 3 years. Kex was crying, which for Kelvari meant that small lights under their skin were flashing rapidly. Dr. Liu, please don't go, Kex begged. I can hide your research, I can say it was my work. The council will never know. Chen smiled sadly and patted Kex on the shoulder. Some things are more important than finishing a project, Kex. Sometimes you have to leave when you're not wanted, even if it hurts. All across council space, alien species were watching the human evacuation with growing confusion. They had expected humans to fight back. Humans were known for being stubborn and refusing to give up. When humans wanted something, they usually kept trying until they got it. But this time was different. The Zephyrian ambassador sent a message to his homeworld saying, "The humans are acting very strange. They're leaving without any argument. It's like they don't care about being expelled." But humans did care. In their ships and temporary shelters, human families were crying as they said goodbye to alien friends. Human scientists were heartbroken about leaving their research unfinished. Human traders were sad about losing business relationships they had built over many years. The difference was that humans understood something that other species didn't. Sometimes the best way to show your strength is to walk away with dignity. Sometimes the best response to rejection is to leave peacefully and let others see what they've lost. Admiral Rex Harrison was in charge of the final evacuation fleet. He commanded 800 ships carrying the last 2 million humans from Council space. As his flagship crossed the boundary into empty space beyond the galaxy's edge, he sent one final message back to Council headquarters. "This is Admiral Harrison of the United Earth Space Command. All human people and property have been removed from Council space as you requested. We will not come back. End of transmission." The message was short and simple, but it sent a chill through the Council chambers. Something about the way Admiral Harrison said, "We will not come back," made it sound final in a way that scared the alien leaders. Council Prime Zelthex read the message 3 times. He had expected the humans to ask for one more chance. He had expected them to promise to change their behavior. He had expected them to at least argue about the decision. Instead, the humans had simply left. And somehow, that quiet departure felt more threatening than any angry words could have been. 6 weeks had passed since the last human ship left Council space, and the galaxy felt different in ways that made alien leaders uncomfortable. The change was hard to describe at first. Space looked the same. The stars still shone. The planets still turned. But something important was missing. The trade routes that had been busy with human merchant ships were now quiet. Where once there had been constant radio chatter between human traders and alien customers, now there was only silence. Communication networks that humans had helped build and maintain began to work poorly. Research projects that humans had been part of simply stopped. On Vrex Prime, Minister of Technology Thurok the Elder stared at a wall of black screens in his control room. The planetary defense system had gone dark 3 days ago and nobody could fix it. The system used human-designed software that had protected the planet for 5 years. When the humans left, they took all their technical knowledge with them. "Can't we just copy the old programs?" asked Thurok's assistant, a younger Vrexan named Quill. Thurok's forearms moved in a gesture of frustration. The humans wrote the code in their own language using their own logic. "We can see the symbols, but we don't understand what they mean. It's like trying to read someone else's thoughts." The same problem was happening all over Council space. Humans had been involved in so many projects that their absence left huge gaps. They had designed translation programs that helped different species talk to each other. They had created shipping schedules that moved goods efficiently between worlds. They had written safety protocols that prevented accidents in space. At the trade station near Epsilon Eridani, chaos was growing every day. Human logistics coordinators had been managing supply chains across 17 star systems. They had known which planets needed what goods and when. They had arranged for ships to carry cargo along the most efficient routes. Without them, the system was falling apart. Station Manager Vex looked at his reports and felt a headache building behind his 3 eyes. "We have 17 ships full of medical supplies heading to planets that don't need them," he told his staff. "We have 3 worlds running out of food because their supply ships went to the wrong systems, and we have no idea how to fix any of it." His assistant, a floating jellyfish-like creature named Blop, pulsed nervously. "Should we contact the humans and ask for help?" "The Council banned all contact with humans," Vex replied sadly. "We're on our own now." But the worst part wasn't the technical problems or the broken supply chains. The worst part was the silence. Humans had always been noisy neighbors. They sent messages constantly. They asked questions about everything. They wanted to know how things worked and why. They offered help with problems and shared ideas for making things better. Now there was nothing. No messages from human space. No requests for trade agreements. No scientific papers from human researchers. No diplomatic communications. It was like humans had simply vanished from the universe. Council Prime Zelthek sat in his private chambers and read reports from across the galaxy. Every report told the same story. Things that had worked perfectly when humans were involved were now broken. Systems that had run smoothly for years were failing. The galaxy was discovering how much it had depended on human knowledge and human work. Perhaps we could send a diplomatic message, suggested his advisor, a wise old klaxon named Beep. We could explain that we only meant for humans to leave temporarily while we worked out our differences. Zelthex considered this idea. Send the message, he decided, but send it quietly. We don't want other species to think we're weak. The message was sent through the fastest communication system in the galaxy. It traveled beyond the galactic rim to the last known location of the human fleet. The message was polite and diplomatic. It suggested that perhaps there had been a misunderstanding. It hinted that the Council might be willing to discuss terms for human return. Days passed. Then weeks. No response came back. The silence from human space was complete and absolute. It was as if humans had decided that the galaxy no longer existed for them. They weren't angry. They weren't plotting revenge. They simply weren't there anymore. 3 months after the Exodus, the first major crisis hit. The Nexari plague appeared on 7 different worlds at the same time. It was a terrible disease that affected silicon-based life forms, turning their crystal bodies into dust. Millions of beings were at risk of death. The Galactic Health Organization rushed to respond, but they quickly discovered a huge problem. The galaxy's best expert on diseases that affected multiple species had been Dr. Helen Foster, a human who had worked on Kepler Station. Her research team had spent years developing ways to treat illnesses that jumped between different types of alien life. Dr. Zenth of the Altarian Collective called an emergency meeting. "We need Dr. Foster's research data immediately," he announced to the health organization leaders. "Without her treatment protocols, we could lose billions of lives." "Dr. Foster was human," replied Dr. Cynthia, a floating energy being from the ethereal collective. "She left with all the other humans. Her research went with her." "Then we contact the humans and request the information," Dr. Zenth said. "This is a medical emergency. Surely they'll help us save lives." But when they tried to contact human space, their messages disappeared into the void without any response. The humans weren't answering their calls. They weren't responding to emergency requests. They had gone completely silent. As the plague spread and more aliens died, panic began to grow in the council chambers. Other problems were getting worse too. Without human translators, several trade negotiations had failed because of misunderstandings. 2 minor wars had almost started when the translation computers told one species that another species had called them ugly mating failures instead of honored trading partners. Council Prime Zelthex realized that the galaxy was slowly falling apart without human participation. But the humans weren't coming back. They had kept their word completely. They had left quietly and permanently, just as they had promised. For the first time in his life, Zelthex began to wonder if the Council had made a terrible mistake. The crisis was getting worse every day. 6 months had passed since humanity left Council space, and the Nexari plague had spread to 15 worlds. Billions of silicon-based aliens were dying, and the Galactic Health Organization had no idea how to stop it. The treatment methods they tried either didn't work or made the disease worse. Dr. Zenth floated in his emergency command center, surrounded by screens showing the spread of death across multiple star systems. His energy field flickered with stress as he read the latest reports. On Crystallos Prime, half the population was already dead. On the mining world of Silicate 7, entire cities had turned to dust. "We've tried every treatment we know," reported Dr. Killex, a mantis-like creature from the Blade sector. "Nothing works. The plague adapts to everything we throw at it." Dr. Cynthia's energy form pulsed with desperation. Dr. Helen Foster published papers about this exact type of disease 5 years ago. She predicted that something like this might happen. Her research team developed specific protocols for treating cross-species silicon plagues. "Then we need that research," Dr. Zenth declared. Send another emergency message to human space. Tell them millions are dying. Surely they'll respond. To a humanitarian crisis. But like all the other messages sent to human space, this one disappeared into the void without any response. The humans weren't answering emergency calls. They weren't responding to pleas for help. They had gone completely silent, as if the rest of the galaxy no longer existed for them. Meanwhile, other problems were growing worse across Council space. The economic situation was becoming desperate. Human-designed translation systems continued to fail, making trade negotiations nearly impossible. When the Zephyrian Trade Federation tried to buy grain from the Klaxon Agricultural Collective, the translation computer told the Klaxons that the Zephyrians wanted to devour their children instead of purchase their crops. The resulting diplomatic incident almost started a war. Both species mobilized their fleets before anyone figured out what had gone wrong. 3 other similar incidents happened that same week, all caused by translation failures. Captain Barry Stone had been running security for the Galactic Trade Nexus before the human exodus. His team of 50 human security experts had been responsible for preventing smuggling and illegal technology transfers between species. They had stopped dozens of dangerous situations over the years. Now, without human security oversight, illegal weapons were flowing freely through trade routes. 3 separate incidents of banned technology smuggling had been discovered in just 2 months. Worse, nobody knew how many other shipments had gotten through undetected. The most serious incident involved quantum disruptors, weapons that could destroy entire planets. A criminal organization called the Black Nebula had somehow acquired 12 of these devices and was selling them to the highest bidders. Captain Stone's security protocols would have caught this immediately, but those protocols had left with the humans. Council Security Chief Grack, a massive bear-like creature, stood before the council and delivered a report that made everyone afraid. "We have confirmed sales of planet-killer weapons to 4 different criminal groups," he announced. "We don't know where these weapons are now or what the criminals plan to do with them." Council Prime Zelthex felt his stomach turn cold. "How did this happen? We have security systems in place." "Our security systems were designed by humans," Grack replied. "When they left, they took their knowledge with them. We're trying to rebuild the systems, but it's like trying to repair a machine when you don't understand how it works." The problems weren't limited to big crises. Small issues were adding up to create chaos throughout Council space. Human engineers had designed the traffic control systems for the busy space lanes around major worlds. Without proper maintenance, these systems were failing. Ship collisions were increasing. Trade was slowing down because cargo vessels couldn't navigate safely through crowded areas. On the manufacturing world of Gear 7, production had stopped completely. Human industrial designers had created the automated factory systems that built everything from starship parts to medical equipment. The factories were still running, but they were producing the wrong items because nobody understood how to reprogram them. "We're making 10,000 left shoes and no right shoes," reported factory manager Bolt to his supervisors. "We're producing children's toys instead of spaceship engines. And we're making medicine for diseases that don't exist while we can't make the medicine we actually need." The Pixari, who communicated through musical sounds, were having their own crisis. Human linguists had been the only ones who could properly translate Pixari songs into other languages. Without human translators, the Pixari couldn't participate in council meetings or trade negotiations. They were becoming isolated from the rest of the galaxy. "We sing our thoughts, but no one understands our music anymore," sang Melody 7, the Pixari representative to the council. Her beautiful song was full of sadness. "We are becoming silent in a galaxy that no longer hears us." Even the council's military forces were struggling. Human tactical advisors had helped plan defense strategies for dozens of worlds. Human engineers had designed communication systems that let different species coordinate their fleets. Human diplomats had negotiated the agreements that kept peace between aggressive species. Admiral Claw of the Predator Fleet discovered this when pirates attacked the merchant routes near Omega Station. "We can't coordinate our response," he reported to the council. "The reptilian fleet uses sound-based communication. The crystal ships use light patterns, The gas dwellers use chemical signals. Human communication systems used to translate between all these methods instantly. Now we can't even talk to each other during battle. The pirate attack succeeded because the defending fleets couldn't work together. Millions of credits worth of cargo was stolen, and 12 merchant ships were destroyed. It was the worst pirate victory in 50 years. As reports of failures poured in from across the galaxy, Council Prime Zelthex began to understand the true scope of the disaster. Humans hadn't just been members of the galactic community. They had been the glue that held it together. Their technology, their knowledge, their ability to work with any species, their talent for solving problems, all of this had been quietly keeping the galaxy running smoothly. How did we not see this? Zelthex asked his advisor Beep during a private meeting. How did we not realize how important humans were? Beep's mechanical voice was sad. Perhaps because they never bragged about their contributions. They just quietly did their work and helped whenever asked. We took their help for granted. The council was facing a choice that seemed impossible. They could swallow their pride and formally ask humans to return, admitting that they had made a terrible mistake. Or they could try to fix the problems themselves and hope that the galaxy didn't collapse completely, while they learned to do without human help. But as more worlds fell to the plague, as more wars threatened to break out over translation errors, and as more criminals acquired planet-killing weapons, it became clear that the galaxy might not survive long enough for the Council to figure things out on their own. Council Prime Zelthex stood before the emergency assembly and made a decision that hurt his pride more than anything he had ever done. The Nexari plague had now killed over 2 billion beings. 3 minor wars had started because of translation failures. Criminal organizations were selling planet-killer weapons openly. The galaxy was falling apart, and everyone knew it. The Council hereby authorizes a diplomatic mission to locate humanity and negotiate their return to galactic society, Zelthex announced. His voice was steady, but inside he felt ashamed. 6 months ago he had expelled humans for being too difficult. Now he was begging them to come back. The mission would be led by Captain Vorthak of the scientific vessel Harmony. Captain Vorthak was a good choice because he had always respected humans. During the 15 years that humans were part of the Council, Vorthak had worked with many human scientists and had learned to appreciate their clever thinking and creative solutions. The ship carried representatives from 12 different species. Each one had instructions to offer humans something valuable if they would return. The Christek Collective offered to share their most advanced technology. The Fluaran Empire promised exclusive trading rights. The Ethereal Collective even offered to make humans permanent members of the Council's ruling committee. Find them and bring them back, Zelthex had ordered. Offer them anything they want. The galaxy needs them. But as the Harmony traveled beyond the galactic rim into the empty space where humans had gone, Captain Vorthak wondered if the mission was already too late. Humans had been completely silent for 6 months. Maybe they had decided that the galaxy wasn't worth their time anymore. What the search team found beyond the edge of known space shocked them all. "Captain," called Navigation Officer Flux, her crystalline body flickering with excitement, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures ahead. There are hundreds of artificial structures out there." "That's impossible," replied Science Officer Gren. "A floating gas being. This region was empty when humans passed through it 6 months ago. There's nothing here but dead systems and asteroids." But as the Harmony moved closer, the truth became clear. Humanity hadn't retreated to some hidden corner to lick their wounds. They hadn't spent 6 months plotting revenge against the Council. Instead, they had done something that was completely, typically human. They had built a new civilization. The search team stared in amazement at what they found. Dozens of space stations orbited dead planets, bringing them back to life. Asteroid. Mining operations extracted resources on a scale that dwarfed anything in Council space. Terraforming equipment was turning barren worlds into garden planets. Ship construction yards were building vessels with designs that looked more advanced than anything the Council had ever seen. "How is this possible?" whispered Dr. Cynthia as she studied the readings. "They've accomplished in 6 months what it took the Council centuries to build." Captain Vorthak was equally amazed. The scope of this construction is incredible. They've established permanent colonies on 15 worlds. They have mining operations in 6 asteroid belts. They've built a communication network that covers this entire region of space. But the biggest surprise was still to come. As the Harmony approached the largest space station, they detected something that made no sense. There were non-human life signs aboard the station. Lots of them. "Captain, I'm reading energy patterns from at least 3 unknown species," reported sensor operator Clicks. "These aren't any life forms in our database." When Admiral Kate Murphy welcomed the council delegation aboard the station called New Horizon, she wasn't alone. Standing beside her were representatives of 3 species that the council had never seen before. They looked different from any known galactic life forms, but they seemed comfortable and happy working with humans. Admiral Murphy had been part of the council fleet before the Exodus. She was a calm, professional woman who had always treated alien species with respect. Now she wore the uniform of something called the Human Alliance, and she seemed confident in a way that impressed the council delegates. "Representatives of the Galactic Council," Admiral Murphy said formally, "welcome to Human Alliance space. What brings you here?" Captain Vorthak felt nervous as he delivered the council's message. The galaxy was in crisis. Billions were dying from plagues. Wars were breaking out. Criminal organizations were selling weapons of mass destruction. The council needed human expertise to fix these problems. In exchange, they were prepared to offer humanity full membership in the council, including permanent seats on all major committees. Admiral Murphy listened politely to the entire presentation. When Captain Vorthak finished speaking, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that would be remembered throughout galactic history. "Thank you for the generous offer, but humanity must respectfully decline." The council delegates sat in shocked silence. They had expected negotiations. They had prepared to offer even more incentives. They had not expected a simple refusal. "You don't understand," insisted Dr. Zephyr of the Crystal Mines. "The galaxy is collapsing without human knowledge and skills. Entire civilizations are dying from diseases that only human doctors know how to treat. Surely you can't just ignore this humanitarian crisis." Admiral Murphy exchanged glances with her staff before responding. "We are aware of the Nexari plague," she said calmly. "Our medical teams developed an effective treatment 2 months ago. We've been distributing the cure freely to any species that requested our help." Captain Vorthak felt confused. "But you haven't responded to our emergency messages." "We don't respond to messages from Council space," Admiral Murphy explained. "However, 12 non-Council species have contacted us directly. We've provided medical aid to all of them. The cure is available to anyone who asks for it." The implications of this statement slowly sank in. Humans had solved the plague crisis that was killing billions in Council space. They had been giving away the cure for free to anyone who asked, but they wouldn't share it with the Council because the Council had expelled them. "What about the translation system failures?" asked Dr. Cynthia. "Trade is collapsing because species can't communicate properly. We've developed new translation technology that's far superior to the old Council systems," Admiral Murphy replied. "Our current systems have a 99.7% accuracy rate compared to the 94% rate that Council systems achieved at their best." "Then surely you could license this technology to us," suggested Captain Vorthak hopefully. Admiral Murphy smiled slightly. "That would be possible, but it would require some significant changes to Council policies." She gestured toward the 3 alien beings who had been standing quietly during the conversation. "I'd like you to meet our partners. This is Harmony Singer of the Song Weavers, Deep Thought of the Pattern Builders, and Star Shaper of the Crystal Gardeners." The 3 beings stepped forward and greeted the Council delegation in their own unique ways. Harmony Singer communicated through beautiful musical tones. Deep Thought projected complex mathematical equations directly into their minds. Star Shaper created small crystal sculptures that somehow conveyed emotions and ideas. These 3 species have been trying to join the Galactic Council for decades, Admiral Murphy continued. Each time they were rejected because the Council considered them too different, too strange, or too difficult to understand. The irony hit the council delegates like a physical blow. These were exactly the same reasons the council had given for expelling humanity. "We found them to be remarkable partners," Admiral Murphy said. "The Song Weaver's harmonic technology has revolutionized our communications. The pattern builders helped us solve engineering problems that had puzzled us for years. The crystal gardeners taught us new ways to grow food in space that are more efficient than anything we had before." Captain Vorthak began to understand what had really happened. Humanity hadn't gone into exile. They had gone exploring and had found other species that the council had rejected. Together they were building something new and better than what the council offered. Captain Vorthak struggled to understand what he was seeing and hearing. The human alliance wasn't just a group of refugees trying to survive in empty space. It was a thriving civilization that seemed to be advancing faster than anything in council space. The three alien species working with humans were clearly intelligent and capable, yet the council had rejected them for being too different. "I don't understand," said Dr. Zephyr, his crystal body flickering with confusion. "If you have cures for the plague and better translation technology, why won't you share them with the council? Billions of beings are suffering." Admiral Murphy's expression became serious. "We tried to share our knowledge with the council for 15 years. We offered our technology, our research, our help with solving galactic problems. The council's response was to expel us for being too aggressive and unpredictable." She gestured around the space station where they stood. "Everything you see here was built by species that the council rejected. The Song Weavers were told their music was just noise. The pattern builders were dismissed because their thinking was too fast and complex. The crystal gardeners were rejected because their cities didn't look pretty enough for council standards." Harmony Singer stepped forward and began to sing in her beautiful voice. The translation system on the station converted her music into words that the council delegates could understand. "We offered our songs to the council 40 years ago. Our music carries information in ways that your words cannot. We could have solved many communication problems, but the council said our voices were unpleasant sounds." Deep thought projected mathematical equations into the minds of the delegates. The complex formulas showed solutions to engineering problems that had puzzled council scientists for decades. "We tried to share our knowledge 35 years ago. We could have helped design better starships, more efficient energy systems, improve space stations. The council said our thinking was too alien to be useful. Starshaper created a small crystal sculpture that somehow conveyed emotions of sadness and rejection. We wanted to help grow food for hungry worlds 28 years ago. Our crystal gardens can produce more nutrition than any other farming method. The council said our techniques were too strange and refused to learn from us." The council delegates began to understand the full scope of their mistake. For decades, they had been rejecting species that could have made the galaxy a better place. They had driven away the very diversity that could have solved their problems. "But surely we can work together now," pleaded Dr. Cynthia. "We could form some kind of partnership. The council could change its policies." Admiral Murphy nodded thoughtfully. "That's an interesting possibility, but any partnership would require the council to make some fundamental changes." She led the delegates to a large window that looked out into space. Hundreds of ships were moving between the space stations, carrying cargo and passengers. But these weren't just human ships. The fleet included vessels designed by all four species in the Alliance, each type bringing its own advantages. The Song Weaver ships use harmonic drives that are faster and more efficient than anything the Council has, Admiral Murphy explained. The pattern builder vessels can calculate navigation routes that reduce travel time by 30%. The Crystal Gardener ships can grow their own fuel as they travel, making them completely self-sufficient. Captain Vorthak watched the mixed fleet with growing amazement. Your alliance has achieved in 6 months what took the Council centuries to build. Actually, Admiral Murphy corrected, the alliance now includes 12 species. 8 more have joined us in the past 2 months. This news hit the Council delegates like a shockwave. 8 more species, repeated Dr. Zephyr. From where? Most of them were former Council members who became frustrated with Council policies, Admiral Murphy replied. The Wanderer clans left the Council 3 months ago after their request for exploration rights was denied for the 5th time. The Deep Ocean folk left 2 months ago when the Council refused to let them establish underwater colonies. The Night Flyers left last month when the Council said their nocturnal lifestyle was disruptive to galactic schedules. She paused to let this information sink in. They've all found the Alliance to be much more welcoming than the Council. The truth was becoming clear to the Council delegates. The Human Alliance wasn't just competing with the Council. It was replacing. Species were leaving the Council to join humanity's more inclusive organization. What would it take for the Council to establish diplomatic relations with your alliance? Asked Captain Vorthak desperately. Admiral Murphy considered this question carefully. The alliance is built on principles of equality and inclusion. Every species has an equal voice regardless of how different they might seem. Decisions are made by consensus, not by the votes of the most powerful members. She looked directly at each Council delegate. The Council would need to abandon its hierarchical structure. It would need to stop rejecting species for being different. It would need to treat all members as equals, not as junior partners to be managed. That would mean completely restructuring the Council, protested Dr. Cynthia. Yes, Admiral Murphy agreed. It would mean admitting that the Council's current approach has failed. The delegates spent 3 more days in Alliance space touring facilities and meeting with representatives of different species. Everywhere they looked, they saw cooperation and innovation on a scale that made Council achievements look small and outdated. The Song Weavers had developed new medical techniques that used sound waves to heal injuries that Council doctors considered incurable. The Pattern Builders had created manufacturing systems that could produce any item needed on demand, with no waste. The Crystal Gardeners had designed terraforming technology that could turn dead planets into thriving worlds in just a few years. Most impressive of all was how well the different species worked together. Despite their vastly different biologies and cultures, they had learned to communicate effectively and combine their strengths. Humans seemed to have a special talent for bringing different groups together and helping them find common ground. When the Council delegation prepared to leave, Admiral Murphy gave them a final message to take back to Council space. The Alliance will always be willing to establish diplomatic relations with the Council, she said, but only if the Council is willing to change its fundamental approach to galactic governance. We will not return to a system that rejects species for being different. As the Harmony traveled back toward Council space, Captain Vorthak and his team knew they were carrying news that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. The Council had expelled humanity to preserve order and stability. Instead, they had created a competitor that was proving to be more successful in every measurable way. 6 months later, the situation had become critical for the Council. 17 more species had formally requested to leave the Council and join the Human Alliance. Trade agreements were being canceled as former Council members found better deals with Alliance partners. The Nixari plague continued to kill millions in Council space, while Alliance worlds remained healthy and safe. Council, Prime Zelthek sat alone in his chambers, reading reports that all told the same story. The Alliance was growing stronger while the Council grew weaker. The humans had won without firing a single shot or making a single threat. They had simply built something better and invited everyone to join them. The final irony was becoming clear. The Council had expelled humanity to protect galactic civilization from human unpredictability and aggression. But human unpredictability had led to innovations that the Council couldn't match. And human aggression had been transformed into an aggressive pursuit of cooperation and inclusion that made the Alliance more attractive than the Council. In trying to preserve their vision of galactic order, the Council had made themselves irrelevant. The galaxy was moving toward a new future, one where difference was celebrated rather than feared, where cooperation was chosen over control, and where humanity's quiet departure had become the foundation for a better way of living among the stars.